Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 10th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Liana. How you doing, Liana?
Taran, if you bury the lead on this podcast, I will come to your house, steal Orwell, and hide him. I want to talk about the, whatever it was, the field trip. I don't care.
The whatever it was. Well, I don't want you to steal Orwell.
Then let's talk about it.
It's Orwell. The field trip is the first thing to talk about. Yes, we're going to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 21 live feeds. It was day 52 in the house, and it was the day of the field trip. The feeds went down pretty quickly in the morning for the field trip. When they came back, we found out what happened. Jackson, Christy, and Sis were sent on the field trip. It was, I believe, the egg competition where you're like sticking your fingers through the wires or whatever. Jackson won safety. Sis got the punishment, a chicken costume. And Christy is the third nominee.
This is so fun. It's like finding out all over again. I'm really, really excited about this outcome. Obviously, there's a lot of strategic choices now to be made from different sides, but just on a personal level, I'm very excited that this is the outcome and that Christy could potentially be going home on Tommy's HOH.
Very, very potentially.
Yeah.
Yes. So Sis ended up getting sent there. I did have my doubts that Sis would get enough votes. But my guess for why this happened, given that Sis is barely on the episodes, is that the live feed vote did have a more significant impact than we were giving it credit for. I would imagine because of the length of the vote, it took place over 8 days, and you had 10 votes per day. I imagine most people watching the show only probably, went to vote once and then didn't come back. So if you voted, 8 times over the course of 8 days, then you had 8 times the voting power. So I'll add on top of that, as Brent points out in the chat, that the voting page was difficult to find if you weren't Googling it specifically.
Even then, it was difficult to find. I think you had to have a CBS All Access account to vote also. So, that's going to weed out some people for sure. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right that it was the live feeders that probably pushed Sis up there. I know I did my part. I voted for Sis. So, admittedly only once because I couldn't find the page again, but still.
I mean, that was the strategy that we talked about, that we need to vote people like Sis in the event that Jack and, whoever else are going to be ineligible. And so there you go. Sis ended up getting sent on the field trip. Christy is the third nominee. Sis is going to talk about how she's going to say, Tommy, I'm sorry. I tried so hard to lose.
Yeah, this was very confusing when feeds came back. She was essentially saying I'm sorry that I didn't throw it, because apparently Christy was like really struggling and Sis didn't want to make it look like she was throwing, but I don't understand that at all. So yeah, that was the thing that happened.
I think in Sis's mind, she's like, if Christy ends up on the block, she might go home, but if I end up on the block, I'd be safe because I'm hot. I don't know.
Possibly. Or that, Christy is the one that's potentially being targeted by the other side and Sis thinks that she can slip through. So maybe she thought it was a group preservationist move. I'm not sure. But also who knows what goes through her head. So not much, I don't think. But
Tommy says he's glad that she wasn't nominated because he would have felt really bad if she ended up being the third nominee, given the fact that she shouldn't have even been sent in the first place. Tommy recognizes that it would have been Jack and it would have been me, but both of us couldn't be there, and that's the only reason you got sent on that trip, Sis.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting to hear sort of the logic and the reasoning behind who ended up going on the field trip because, when Christy is crying, of course, they're consoling her and saying, no, 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 it's because America loves you. They wanted to give you a chance at safety. But I mean, I think deep down, they all know the real reason. I mean, Christy even talks so much about, like, I hate the thought that America doesn't like me. And so they think they know that it's related to them not necessarily being well liked.
Yeah, everybody knows what this was. Some of them are gonna try to be like, oh, but maybe. They all know. They all know. Christy is going to be freaking out and crying for most of the day about being hated, about being nominated. Really, just anytime you hear Christy talk over the next few hours of whatever is left in the day, there's a good at least like 20 to 30% chance that as she's speaking, it's gonna eventually turn into okay, no, it's okay, I'm okay.
Thanks for the impression, Taran. We didn't know what crying was.
Yeah, just letting you know.
Okay.
So that's Christy's on the block. She's very, very upset. Tommy says this changes everything, but really it changes nothing because Tommy's gonna let Nick know Kat and Cliff are his nominees for this week. He lets Nick know Kat is going to be his target. Nick agrees with that plan. He says, great. We know this means nothing has changed, but Tommy is trying to act like, oh no, this changes everything.
I would have put Jackson on the block, but
man.
Oh no, now I can't. So, oh no. Yeah. Definitely that's his way of going about this.
Yeah, and that's his line to Kat. As he talks to Kat, he says, oh, this changes everything. Now I wasn't thinking this before, but now I wouldn't be surprised if you end up on the block, Kat. I hope you understand.
Yeah, and so apparently this seems to be a season where everybody picks a phrase that they like to use and then reuse it for every single conversation that they have. So Tommy's phrase was, I'm caught in a hard place, which I thought it was, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place, or I'm in a tough spot. I don't know. I've never heard that phrase before. I'm caught in a hard place. Also, though, I've never heard that I made a flaw also. So that was new to me as well. But yeah, so this is the phrase that he seems to repeat. It was essentially I'm in a tough spot. There's not a lot of people to nominate. Christy's already on the block, even though, it's no way he was going to put her up anyway. He can't put Jackson up. So he's caught in a hard place. So of course he's not going to say who he's going to, put up on the block, but essentially starts to allude to Kat and also to Cliff later in a conversation that they better be prepared that they're going up.
Yeah. Look, Nick. Yeah. Brent said the joke in the chat first. I can't do it now. All right. Tommy is also going to. So Kat actually says hey, if you leave me off the block, I'm a vote to keep Christy. And Tommy's like, great. Sure. Tommy also is going to talk with Jess. So Tommy and Christy are going to be working very hard on Jess throughout the day. Tommy starts it off. Oh man. Just so not fair. So not fair that Christy's on the block like this. Jess is like, yeah, totally not fair. Unbelievable. Christy shouldn't be on the block. Tommy's like, yeah, man, we should really take her down. That would be the best move, to take her down and make it more fair. And Jess is like, yeah, I'd totally be willing to take Christy down. You're totally right.
I definitely would do this, Tommy, for sure. From the conversations later, Tommy seems to buy it.
I seem to buy it. I think Jess could do it. I'm serious. So? Did you hear her conversation with Kat later?
I mean, yeah, but I don't think that the others, there's no way. In what way would Kat let Jess do that?
I don't think Kat would let Jess do it, but I think Jess wants to do it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
I think Jess is serious in this moment, and I think that Kat will have to be like, Jess, no, and Jess will be like, fine. But I think Jess wants to.
Yeah, but what Jess wants to do lots of things in life, So I don't know. Possibly she changes her mind, and I'm not quite sure always what her opinions are. So I don't know. I think though that this is a moment where she's up there with Tommy. She, like we've talked about before, she's a people pleaser, so she says what other people want to hear. And so I think, and that's what was happening in this conversation with Tommy. I really don't think that she would want to do it though.
All right. Well, we get to Nicole and Kat. They're immediately talking about like, well, we need to take Christy out if she stays up on the block. Do we have the votes? Yeah, we have the votes. Okay, we're gonna take Christy out. Kat goes to Jess, and she says to Jess, okay, so if Christy stays on the block, we've got to take her out. And Jess is like, really? Kat's like, yeah, there's no way we can keep Christy. And Jess is like, okay, let's just slow it down and take it one step at a time, okay? Like Jess will not say that she will vote Christy out. She's like, let's just take it one step at a time. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just slow it down.
Yeah, but I think that's because Jess is like truly working through it. Like she needs to get there to like really think about what happened. This is a complete wrench. Look, Jess just learned the strategy of Big Brother. Okay, she got a crash course last week when she was HOH. So now she's kind of figuring it out. But of course, throw a wrench in the plan with putting up another nominee. And so she's just taking her time to sort this out, is what I'm choosing to believe.
Yes, let me be clear. I don't think Jess will vote out Kat or Cliff over Christy, but I think she really does want Christy to stay, and that could be important if Christy wins the veto and Kat or just have to go home, or Kat or Cliff have to go home anyway. Especially if Kat goes home, I'm starting to look at this as potentially, Christy and Tommy might be able to pick Jess up if Kat leaves. So something to watch out for there. Kat continues to try to convince Jess by saying like, oh, America's vote is very telling. Very telling. And just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Jess just sort of like repeats back what Kat's saying. Like, yes, it was very telling. Okay, what do you think it told you? But yeah, Kat clearly in this conversation knows that like it's because they are disliked. Like that's why those people got voted. So
yeah. Tommy's going to talk with Christy and Sis. So what I talked about yesterday was that if Christy ends up on the block, it might change what Tommy wants to do, both in terms of nominations and in terms of target. Because obviously, as we talked about with Jess, if Tommy is targeting Kat, it actually makes it a lot harder to keep Christy if Christy remains on the block, because Jess theoretically could be a vote to keep Christy, but not over Kat. Jackson and Holly are theoretically votes that could keep Christy, but not over Kat. They could be over Cliff. So if Tommy wants to keep Christy around and the nominations stay the same, he will probably have to shift his target to Cliff. This is something that Christy is going to start catching on to pretty quickly. It's something that Tommy kind of recognizes in this conversation, that Jackson and Holly might want Cliff out over Kat. They're not fully on board with it yet. They're still kind of like, but we really want Kat out because it is best for Tommy that Kat goes. But it would not surprise me at all if the nominations stay the same, that if by Thursday, Tommy and Christy and all of them are fully on board with evict Cliff in order to save Christy, if that's even possible.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that I didn't start hearing Tommy talk about this sooner, because if Christy stays on the block, he then switches, I think, from try to get a person out to protect this one person. And so you have to think about who is the person that could go up against Christy that would be voted out in this situation up against her. Like that is the person that you need to put on the block. But it just seems that Tommy is operating in such a way that he thinks he has enough people that would take Christy off the block, so it's not going to be an issue. And he just seems to be functioning like she's not going to be on the block at the end of the day. Although I think there's a little voice in the back of his head that's saying, hey, so But like, what if she stays on the block though? Like, what are you going to do in that situation? And so it's going to be really interesting to see how things shift depending on the outcome of the veto competition.
Yes, and I think that one of the issues here preventing Tommy from fully going on board to targeting Cliff is that he thinks he has Jackson and Holly. He really feels comfortable that they would go along with this, which is obviously a mistake. Although, he might have them a little bit, but not if he targets Kat. He wants to have his cake and eat it too, and keep Christy safe while eating the cake. And it's going to be very difficult to make all of that happen if Christy stays on the block, and I don't think he quite realizes that yet. He has a conversation with Jackson where he says, hey, this is fine. I was not going to put you up anyway. I hope you know that. Jackson says he does. Jackson does promise Tommy that he will vote however Tommy wants. Tommy's like, great, this Jackson is on board with me. Tommy believes Jackson, which, to be fair, Jackson has been relatively straightforward about promises like that in the past. I think that Jackson means it when he says this, because I think Jackson thinks that it's not going to matter. But ultimately, we know that Jackson wants Christy gone, and if Christy's on the block, there's definitely a good chance that Jackson votes to evict Christy. And I think that Jackson would try to talk Tommy into, like, hey, I should vote out Christy. Anyway, Jackson's promising to vote however Tommy wants. Tommy starts to explain. Tommy's like, oh, that's fantastic. Well, here's what I want. Kat is in good with everyone, and that really scares me. And so what I'm thinking is, hey, everyone, I'm in a chicken costume. They get interrupted by Sis.
Yeah, it was like a conversation. Hey, I'm actually excited to see how this plays out. No. And of course, it's ruined by Sis in a dollar store chicken costume that is shedding feathers all over the house. She sits down and then gets up and leaves a little pile of feathers. Christy was carrying around a cup because she was like collecting all the feathers from Sis's costume. So not only was it frustrating because it interrupted the conversation, but also she's shedding feathers everywhere.
Yes. And so everyone has to run down. They have to interrupt the conversation to go look at Sis's chicken costume that is literally just like a loose-fitting onesie with some feathers on it. And they've done this one before. Why is it that the America's punishment is a onesie that she can wear clothes under and like is perfectly comfortable? She said she can change it out every day. It seems perfectly fine. And then like a random veto competition punishment is a big penis helmet that is very heavy that Tommy can't take off, and he has to run around the house doing missions all the time. That is a vast difference in scope and severity, and I feel like when America doesn't like you, that should be the worst punishment.
Yeah, I completely agree, but I think that they just maybe forgot. Like, crap, we need a costume. Like, take $20 and go to the Party City where you belong and get the chicken costume. Like, oh my gosh, it's really bad. It's really bad. And yeah, she doesn't have any tasks associated with it either, so she just has to wear the costume, which I have to believe is a result of the fact that the producers don't think that Annalise is capable of completing any tasks during this punishment. They're just like, no, this is complicated enough for her. Like, if she can figure out how to follow the instructions of wearing it the entire time, like, that's a win.
Yeah, the biggest punishment to this costume is that she would have to clean up the feathers, and she said she would, but is she really going to be the one to clean up the feathers?
No, I'm telling you, it's Christy walking around crying into a cup of feathers, just sort of like putting them in as Sis like sheds all over the house.
So that conversation gets interrupted. Jackson is never actually told that Kat is the target, and then the feeds go down for nominations. And this is a big deal, because if Tommy had gotten to the point where he tells Jackson where he wants his vote to go, then that kind of like the beans are spilled. He can't take that back, and Jackson and Holly will know that Tommy wants Kat out, and so even if Tommy backtracks and says, oh no, we can do Cliff, it's going to be a much harder road for him. But he is saved by the chicken, and the chicken comes out, and then the feeds go down for nominations. Tommy never gets around to telling Jackson that Kat is his target, and later in the day, he's going to realize maybe he probably shouldn't tell them quite yet, and realizes the mistake that he would have made had he not been saved by the chicken. So, nomination time.
Yeah, the being saved by the chicken gives a whole new meaning to being cock blocked. So I like that.
There you go. Who would have guessed? We'd have 2 blocked references in a row on the live feed update. So Kat and Cliff are nominated for eviction. The feeds come back to Kat crying in the boat room, and it was actually kind of a funny juxtaposition of Kat on one feed crying in the boat room, and Cliff talking with Tommy on the other feed, like doing sort of like the, what are you gonna do? I understand. It's just a game. I got it. And Kat's like, oh. And Cliff's like, what are you?
It's a game. It's a game. Like, it is what it is. Just like chilling in the kitchen. There's, Jackson with a watermelon that he was devastated. Apparently was rotten. So that's state of the feeds.
Yeah. So now let's talk through what this looks like here. Kat and Cliff are on the block. Christy is the 3rd nominee. Tommy is the HOH. That leaves 4 players in the veto competition. So how this works is that Tommy is going to, this is how this has worked in the past. Tommy is going to draw 2 chips himself. There will be 10 chips total in the bag because there are 10 players total in the game. There will be no house guest choice chips. There will only be 1 chip for each player in the game. If he draws somebody that's currently not playing in the veto, they will play in the veto. If he draws somebody that is already playing in the veto, then that will act as a house guest choice chip for that person. So if Tommy draws Kat's name, Kat will then choose somebody to play in the veto. If Tommy draws his own name, he will choose somebody to play in the veto. If Tommy draws Jess's name, then Jess will just straight play in the veto, and Tommy will draw twice. That's how the veto will work. Odds are that 1 person from the outsider group plus Jackson and Holly will get drawn, and 1 person from Nick or Sis will be drawn. That's what's most likely given the current state of odds in the house.
Yeah, which not happy about the Sis Nick likelihood, especially Nick, who's driving me crazy this week. But yeah, I think we're going into this 3v3 in terms of essentially just trying to keep Christy on the block.
Yes. So if Tommy, Christy, or Sis win the veto, they will use it to take Christy down. There will be no replacement, and Kat versus Cliff will be the ultimate nominations for the week. If Nick wins, he'll talk about this a little bit later, he might take Christy down. He might not. He might try to throw the competition as long as it's to Tommy or Christy or Sis. He might also, if he wins, take Cliff down as part of a grand scheme that he has and that we'll talk about later. But for the most part here, the point is if you want Christy to stay on the block, you don't want Nick or Sis playing, and you don't want Tommy, Christy, Nick, or Sis to win the veto. And so it's likely going to be 3-3 going into this. There's a lot of speculation that it's going to be the Otev competition because it's been this week the past 2 seasons I've heard, and just around this time it tends to happen. Last season it was during a hacker week that we had Otev. This season we have a field trip, so it would make sense that Otev would be in play again. So a lot of people in the house are now thinking that it's going to be Otev. So that's something to consider. I do think that Otev, how it generally works is that if you are athletic, you have a slight advantage, but it's very crapshooty in general. I do believe there are 2 people that might struggle with Otev. One being Cliff. He has a bit of an injured leg, and that might prevent him from getting around quickly enough and getting up those slopes. And Sis might have some trouble with the riddles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I was excited to see who the other person was. I was like, is anybody else injured? But oh, right. Sis will definitely pick the wrong like corn or pill or whatever it is that they need to gather. So yeah, I really hope it's Otev, because I think that Kat actually stands a really good chance to win that. I could definitely see her being the one to take the veto, which would be all fine by me.
Yes. So that's what we're looking at going into the veto here. And there are a lot of different scenarios and outcomes that could happen here. If Christy comes down, then Tommy will be able to continue to target Kat. He will probably be able to get Kat out of the game. The votes would be Nick, Sis, Christy to evict Kat, Jess, Holly, and Jackson to evict Cliff, and then Nicole would be the swing there. Nicole likely sides with Cliff, although I do not think that's a complete given. I do feel like I would put her more in the camp of Cliff at this moment.
Yeah, the Outsider Alliance is actually really interesting because some days I think, oh, definitely Nicole and Cliff are together, and then I see a conversation with them. I'm like, this doesn't feel like two people that are really closely aligned talking to each other. Because there was a conversation that happened today when they were talking about voting out Christy, and it was like they had to validate to each other that they were going to vote out Christy when it was like should be like a no duh, we're definitely voting out Christy. And so that sort of fluidity is what might make a split vote between Kat and Cliff really interesting. But I'm hoping it doesn't come to that and Christy just stays on the block. So
yes. And so if Christy stays on the block, then you're looking at Nick and Sis voting to evict not Christy.
Yeah.
Whether it's Kat or Cliff, if that changes, that's 2 votes. And then you have Jess and Nicole voting to evict Christy. That's 2-2. It then comes down to Holly and Jackson. We're going to talk about their conversation discussing this vote. They are definitely leaning toward evicting Christy, but definitely not a given either. So we have a lot of different possibilities and outcomes depending on what happens with the veto still. So what we have now is that Kat and Holly are going to talk. They still think that Cliff is the target. Kat feels like she's not the target. She's like, tell me if you hear any different. But Cliff is the target. That's great for me. So even if Christy doesn't stay on the block, I should be okay. But if Christy stays on the block, Holly, she has to go. And Holly's like, yeah, for sure. Except, I mean, Tommy would be really mad at me. They'd be like gunning for me. That would suck. So I don't know.
Yeah, Jackson is definitely more gung-ho here, and Holly seems to be like, oh, maybe, but like, what if we didn't though? So she's thinking about the ramifications of if she actually were to go through with voting out Christy. But Jackson makes the argument that like, look, Tommy can't play in the HOH next week, so we only have to beat Sis. And like, meanwhile, Sis is, clucking around the house. So like, whatever, like she didn't seem like a threat for multiple reasons. So I mean, I think Jackson makes a really compelling argument. Like, oh, it doesn't matter if you betray their trust. Like Tom can't play and Sis is a disaster.
Yes. And that's what Holly and Jackson are going to talk about after this conversation with Kat. They go later on. People are going to cycle through and kind of comfort Kat when she's crying. And then eventually they clear out of the boat room. Everybody's meditating, which means napping. And so Holly and Jackson go into the boat room and they talk about what to do. Jackson's like, what do we do? Jackson says, Holly's like, Tommy's really gung-ho about getting the 5 back together. Jackson says the 5 are not getting back together. I am not. The thought of working with Christy makes me sick. It's just not going to happen. Holly, though, says, so what do we do? Do we vote Christy out? Because if we do that, Tommy and Sis will be gunning for us. And Jackson points out, well, here's the thing. Tommy can't play in the next HOH. So what, we're just worried about Sis? Like, I don't think we have to worry about that. Holly counters with, okay, you're right. We don't have to worry about that. What we do have to worry about is that if Tommy and Sis are the only people left as targets, then we're going to become the targets real quick for the Cliff's Angels side of the house. By the way, do not tell anybody that I told you about Cliff's Angels. Don't tell anybody. He's like, I'm not going to tell anybody. So I don't know when she told him about this, but I didn't quite catch it the first time that she did. But she has now told Jackson about Cliff's Angels. That was one of the things that was making me feel like she might theoretically be more loyal to Kat than Jackson. Now she has told Jackson about Cliff's Angels. So something to watch there. So that's Holly's concern, that like, okay, maybe we don't have to worry about Tommy's wrath, but if Tommy goes home next week, then it'll just be Sis, and now we have all of Cliff's Angels, and why would they, like, we become the biggest targets in the house. If Christy stays, she remains a big target. She continues to make a target of herself. That's kind of keeping us safe. And I gotta say, Holly makes a good point. Talking about whether or not it's the best thing for Holly and Jackson to vote Christy out. I've kind of been on record saying, I think either way, there are pluses and minuses to her. The only thing she needs to worry about is just not Kat. Don't let Kat go home. If Cliff goes home, that's kind of good, actually. If Christy goes home, that's also kind of good. And so they're trying to figure out which way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, when you start to talk through it and you start to look further and further down the line, like, what is their path to make it past the next couple weeks? Because, like you said, the trio, regardless of whether or not they know each other, of Jackson, Holly, and Kat, do stand out. The thing is that I think that the outsiders, because their relationships are so fluid, I think personally that it behooves Holly to vote out Christy if you can this week, but really strengthen your relationships with some of the outsiders and try to break that group apart, because I think it's tenuous at best, the bonds that are holding the outsiders together. So I think that there's definitely play if they go that direction. Although, if Cliff ends up going, I mean, I think you can still take the remnants of the other side, the three, and somehow work with something with them. So I don't think it's as clear cut necessarily as, obviously you'd want it to be.
Yes. And I gotta say, I've been impressed with what Holly's been doing. We were kind of, high on her early in the season. She had that really bad HOH week where things really very nearly screwed up completely for her, but she recovered very quickly. She managed that situation. She's now in one of the best spots in the house. And I was impressed with how she was thinking through this strategy in this conversation, because she accurately pointed out the entire state of the house and like where she falls if she makes this move, where she falls if she makes this move. She says, look, maybe it'll work out if we vote out Christy, because then we just work with Cliff's Angels, and if we work with Cliff's Angels, then it'll be a 6 with Cliff's Angels. Cliff, Nicole, Jess, Kat, and then us. And they will think that they have us outnumbered, but they actually don't, because we actually have Kat, outside relationship, who's secretly loyal to us. So that actually puts us in a pretty decent spot there. So she correctly points out she's in a pretty good spot either way, and maybe that is the right way to go. It's maybe a little bit risky, but she's still in an advantageous position going that direction.
Yeah, I have a feeling, though, that Jackson will push if Christy is on the block for Christy to go home. So I think it's good that Holly's thinking through all of these things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I do think that Jackson will convince Holly that they need to vote out Christy.
Yes.
Jackson hates her.
Yes. What Jackson says after all of the strategy talk is, I mean, either way, we've got to evict Christy. Yeah. I mean, so, and Holly's like, yeah, I mean, we'll think about it. So Holly's still undecided. She's got some time to wait. She still thinks Cliff is the target. Now, if Tommy had been able to tell Jackson that Kat was the target, if they knew that Kat was the target, I think that would make their decision for them immediately. That if Kat is the target, then they have to vote out Christy. Even if Tommy switches to Cliff, they already know Tommy's intentions. They already know Tommy is trying to strike at them in some way, and probably does not believe them that they don't know Holly or Kat. And so at that point, I think they would definitely they would make up their minds for sure and vote out Christy. But saved by the chicken. So they also talk about Jackson is like, oh man, America hates us. America does not like me. He knows it was a hate thing. Holly's like, no, maybe it was maybe it was like a trending thing like last year, or maybe they like you. Jackson's like, nah. They don't like me. I was first too. I was the first person.
I mean, when you've had a talking to in the DR about how your behavior is being perceived as terrible, and then you get voted up, like, I think he can put two and two together and know that, like, yeah, it's because he's hated by America.
Yeah, and so then Holly does the thing where, like, if something bad happens, you use it to, like, make your own points. So, like, we know that she hates when he talks about, like, his frat boy days, and we know that she hates that he hooked up with Kat. So for Holly, she's like, and everybody does this, but this is Holly's moment here. Like, okay, well, maybe you came in hot, into this game, and Jackson's like, what does that mean? And we know what she means. He came in with Kat, and then you say you talk about all these frat boy stories. Like, I'm sure that's probably why the people voted against you. All of the things that I don't like about you are probably why America voted against you.
That would be such a good mechanic I need that for in like my relationships, and be like, see, this is why, because of all of these things. Very convenient, Holly. I love it.
That's how it works for everyone. Well, like Christy is like, oh, I'm sure it was, I was so sure that Jackson was the villain, and that probably is what made me look like the villain. Like all like
Okay.
people and talking about like other people and why they were voted in. It's always like your own personal gripes. Like, oh, America's with me. They don't like you because of this.
Right, sure, Jan. Yeah, and there's a lot of attributing it to the big fight that happened. And I did think I heard Cliff say at one point, like, oh, he knew that they had been voting since day 44. So because of sort of like the timeline of everything, they're trying to like piece it together to think about like, oh, what was the catalyzing event that could have caused this like vote, the way that the votes turned out. So yeah, there's definitely something with the fight all in there, but they're reading into it what they want to see, even though they know it's negative. They're still trying to like talk it away to make themselves feel better, which I get.
Yeah, and they know. They're doing their best to be like, well, it's because of this or it's because of this. They know. So Christy is going to talk with Nick and Sis about being concerned that if they don't shift the target to Cliff, that she will be voted out. She is recognizing that. She's like, Tommy is not thinking clearly if he thinks that he can get Kat out if I'm still on the block. We need to shift the target to Cliff. So they are definitely already starting to move in that direction.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, Tommy is acting pretty delusional, because I think he said, he was like, yeah, we definitely have Nick and Jess and Nicole that all would take, Christy off the block. And he really thinks that he has all of them. And so it's nice to see like at least his allies are recognizing like, no, dude, this isn't the case. We need to try to shift the target into somebody who would actually go home, because we need Jackson and Holly's vote, and they're not going to vote out Kat.
Mm-hmm. So Christy, Nick, Sis, and Tommy also talk through the veto scenarios. Nick, who had previously said, I'll definitely take you down, Christy, is going to change his tune a little bit to something more along the lines of like, hey, I'll throw it to you guys if I can. It's better for me not to be seen taking Christy off the block if possible. If I do win, maybe I could take down Cliff. Now, this is his sort of Cliff strategy, where so Nick's theory here is that if he wins the veto, he can use it to take Cliff down, and he will make a deal with Cliff. Hey, Cliff, if I take you down, you need to promise that you will not vote Christy out. And so if he doesn't take the deal, then they vote him out. You have to take the deal. And so if Cliff accepts the deal, he'll take Cliff down. They can put somebody like Holly on the block. That's what Nick has been pushing. And then they'll have the votes to take out Kat next to Holly. So there you go. Perfect strategy. And as everyone knows, Cliff is always loyal to his deals. So we can make deals like that with Cliff.
Yeah, the hog father. His word is good. Yeah, it is really interesting to see the long-term ramifications of the whole Bella, like putting up Bella on the block situation, because Cliff can ride this my word is good, like till the cows come home, till the hogs come home. So that's really interesting to see. And it definitely factors in this conversation with Nick.
Yeah, and Tommy and Christy, like they're like, yeah, that could maybe work. Like, I mean, let's talk about it, but like, we'd rather Christy off the block, but Cliff is good to his word. So either way, though, Nick is not going to let Christy go home. He is firmly on their side. He is also going to talk with Tommy about, like, hey, look, like, we can do this. We can do this. It's gonna be us. Here's what we do. We take out Kat. We take out Jess. We take out Jackson. We get rid of Holly. We get down to 6 with you, Sis, Christy, me, Nicole, Cliff. That's a great 6. It's 3v3. It's me, Cliff, and Nicole versus you, Sis, and Christy. But really, secretly, I'm with you guys. So it's perfect.
Nick is the worst. I don't even think I listened to the end back half of this conversation because I was just like so over him at that moment. So this is all yours, Taran.
Yeah, Tommy says, yeah, I like that. That works. So that's Nick's plan here. That's what he wants. He wants to get down to the final 6 with Cliff, Nicole, and Tommy, Sis, and Christy. And I think in Nick's mind, Tommy and Sis are still anti-Christy. And to be fair, Sis kind of is. So he's got an in with that trio, and then he's, you know, on the visible side of things with Nicole and Cliff, where he has Nicole more than Cliff does, and he also has Tommy. So Nick feels very well like Nick is in his own mind right now, like, I am a mastermind. I am a genius. What a fantastic setup that would be. Little does he know that would be a pretty terrible setup. Nicole would be more loyal to Cliff. Tommy would be more loyal to Christy. Sis would be more loyal to Tommy. And Nick is nowhere in that group.
I mean, Nick also thinks he's funny. So
I'm funny.
I'm funny. I think that goes along with it that you say you're a good guy, you're not actually a good guy. If you have to say you're funny, you're probably not funny.
Yeah. I tweeted out, I quoted him, but I didn't use quotes. I just said, haha, I'm funny. And so then, like, the problem with doing something like that is that everybody replies with insults for Nick, like, for the quote. But, like, when I see the replies, I'm like, oh, they're insulting. Oh, no, they're insulting Nick. But it's like, I have that moment of like, oh, everyone's making fun of me. Because, but they're really just making fun of Nick. All right. So that's Nick's plan. He also talks about, again, he likes Nicole, but Nicole needs to be with him or he's going to drop her.
Yeah, he's like giving Nicole ultimatums that Nicole has to pick a side. You have to pick a side. And Nicole, I mean, clearly, it's like, what are you talking? Like, what is going on? And is feeling more and more distant with Nick because of Nick's pushing for her to pick a side.
Yes. And so Nicole is going to now. So one thing that's happening here that Cliff should be worried about is that Nicole and Kat are, you know, sleeping in the same room. They're in beds next to each other. And so Nicole is kind of just like moping in bed for a while. And Kat is kind of moping in bed as well. And so they talk a bit here. And they're bonding more. Now, Nicole was pretty mad at Kat last night. I do think that right now Nicole would still pick Cliff over Kat if it came down to it, especially, you know, we'll talk about with Nick in her ear. But you know, Cliff and Kat need to realize that Nicole is the swing vote here, and they should both be trying to spend a lot of time with her. I don't know if Kat is doing this intentionally or if she just happened to be in the bed next to her, but either way, this is good work on Kat's part because she will need Nicole if she wants to survive if Christy comes down. And so they're bonding a bit, and Nicole is going to vent to Kat her frustrations about Nick and the fact that he keeps pressuring her to pick a side and all of this stuff, and it's really, really annoying and frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was, I mean, I get where Nicole is coming from. And I don't necessarily know if it's intentional, but Kat was the one that then is now getting all of this information. And I think that is super useful when you're trying to figure out like what is going on in Nick's head. I mean, this should tell you in this moment that Nick is firmly on the other side. Like you can't trust him.
Yes. And so, I mean, basically what we're going to see is that Nick says to Nicole that he's on the other side. But first, I just want to quickly get through what was definitely my least favorite conversation, maybe, of the season. Christy and Jess have a very long conversation, and oh man, there's such a thing as getting to the point that never happens with both of the, like, they're both people that love to just talk a lot. And so it's a lot of talking, and a lot of crying on Christy's part, and a lot of like saying things and platitudes. And so basically, like, Christy's gonna be working on Jess for hours, and really just trying to secure that vote. And so she's going to be explaining a lot of what's happened in the game, and occasionally starting to cry. And you know, I really have been a loyal person in this game, and I'm really true to my word. And you know, she explains what's happened. She says that you know, what happened last week was that Holly was really pushing Christy to use her power when Jess was HOH, but Christy had she's sworn on her sister that she wouldn't, so she would never have done that to Jess. But Holly really wanted to make it happen. You know what else? Holly, during her HOH, really wanted to take Nicole out of the game, but it was Christy who took up the sword to defend the sovereignty of Nicole's state.
Yeah, that's one of sort of the main points that Christy is using, that her and Tommy were like defending Nicole. And so like, look at what good people they are. Like, look how they go to bat for the people that they're aligned with. It takes a long time to like get this out. And it's very convoluted. But yes, I believe the purpose of this conversation is to show that, look, you have to stick with us. You have to go against Holly, and that means you have to go against Kat. So that seems to be what Christy is trying to get out of this very, very, very long conversation.
Yeah. So, and it's genuinely something that I think, you know, while Kat needs to work on Nicole, she also needs to put in at least a minimal amount of work to make sure that Jess keeps her head on straight, because Christy is spending a lot of time with Jess trying to make this work. So she doesn't really get a ton from Jess. A lot of, again, it's sometimes hard to tell with Jess. It's just a lot of, like, Christy even points it out at one point. She's like, you're just like staring into space. And Jess is like, yeah, it's my resting bitch face. It's you know, maybe I'm listening to you, maybe I'm thinking about something else, who knows.
We'll never know.
She's definitely thinking about something else.
I mean, like, it's so difficult to listen to Christy for that long, especially amidst the tears. So, like, I get it, Jess.
I hear that. Jess does this to everybody, though. It's so confusing. I'd never know. Like earlier when Kat was talking about like keeping or getting rid of Christy, and Jess was just like, I don't know. Let's slow down. Like, was that a disgusted look, or was that a I wasn't listening, let's slow down and reconsider later look? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I have a feeling like it's her, the like, I'm processing this information as it's coming in look, and it's too much for me to handle, so I can't also control my facial expressions look. I don't know. It's like too complicated. Maybe that's something that I'll start implementing on podcasts. This is gonna make for, oh, that's great. Dead air is lovely.
I think the listeners got what was happening there, or they have that silence skipper on, and they we just burst out laughing at nothing.
That sounds about right.
All right, so Nick is going to talk with Nicole in what to me was an uncomfortable conversation. I did not like it myself because I am a big Nicole fan. Nick, so Jack is gone. Nick is feeling very much like a genius. and he feels like he is really, getting his stride in the house. He's really picking up steam. He's starting to feel like big boy on campus, and so he's starting to get a little too big for his britches. He's really starting to feel like, all right, let's come on. You got to be with me. You got to be with me on this. It's my way or the highway. Like, you got to jump on this train or you're gonna get left behind. So he's going up to Nicole. He's like, look, we got to talk. I'm not sure who you're close to, but we're gonna talk this. You got to start opening up to me. You got to start trusting me. You got to get on my train, my level, my strategy. You gotta be with me here, okay? Okay, Nicole, are you with me? Who's your number one? Do not tell me I'm not your number one.
Yeah, this was very odd. I don't know like where Nick decided to manifest all of this confidence, but like, settle down, boy. This is not a good look.
Yeah, and Nicole is just kind of like, you're my number one.
Yeah, you. Definitely you,
I
Nick.
trust you the most.
You're the best.
Yeah. What did you want to tell me?
Like, Nick is like, oh, of course, this is going to be our final two. This is the best, chance we have. Blah, 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 blah. Just continuing to pile on Nicole. Nicole's just,
What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Get to final two together.
Yeah.
Yes!
Worst hype man ever. Sit down, okay?
And so he's like, so yeah, I'm hearing my name's getting dragged. People are trying to campaign against me to Tommy. Like, do you know what's happening with that, Nicole? What's happening? Nicole's like, I don't know. She's like, come on, Nicole, tell me. She's like, I heard that you were saying to them that if you didn't vote Jack out, that, Nicole and Cliff and them would all be mad at you and target you. It's like, who told you that? It's like, Nicole, tell me, who told you? It's like, Cliff. It's like, okay, well, I did say that. So.
So, yeah. Then,
how did Cliff know? Did he overhear? He must have heard.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and this whole like Nick thing with like I can only protect you so far unless you start returning the favor, like kind of deal. Like, what is this? Sit down. Stop it, Nick.
He was sitting down.
That's true.
So he says, okay, look, I have chosen my side. I'm with Tommy, Christy, Sis, and I think you need to jump on board. I think that we can make this work. And here's something that you don't know. During Holly's HOH week, she really wanted to put you on the block because that would give Sam the best chance of staying. She really wanted to send you home. This is true. This is what Christy was telling Jess as well. This is true information, and it is somewhat telling of Holly's relationship with Kat and how they are kind of just playing Cliff's Angels. It is good information, and I think Nicole recognizes that to some degree because she does take it in, and she is thinking about it. He says, Holly really wanted you gone. It was Tommy and Christy that decided to block it and say no, that, Nicole should not go on the block. And that's the only reason why you stayed off the block. And Nicole is like, I don't know what to believe. He's like, believe me. You got to trust me, Nicole. She's like, but who told you that? Like, when did you find out? And he was like, I found out like 5 days ago. I didn't want to tell you yet because I was trying to work it through. But Tommy told me. She's like, well, yeah, Tommy told you that he, sure,
yeah,
of course Tommy would tell you that. But she's like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know. Nicole, I think, is genuinely struggling here between, the pressure that Nick is putting on her, the pressure that she has from Kat and Holly and them. She's not sure where to go, who to believe, and what to do. She has been saying ever since the big blow up, with the undeniable blow up, she has just wanted to be in an alliance with people that she likes, that she can trust, that she can work with, and just like just not have to deal with any of this. But she's got people telling her different things, and she doesn't know where to go from here.
Yeah, and I mean, she got a taste of that last week, like when Jess was in power and everything kind of worked out. And so I think to feel that level of comfort is just so nice, especially in the Big Brother house. And like she's clearly been on the outs majority of the time. And so the fact that this could be a way that she would have an alliance, a group of people that really would keep her safe. Like I understand why she would be considering it. And I think, she does go on then to talk to Tommy that night, which I think is really good, even though, again, of course, Tommy would say that he was the one who was protecting Nicole in this situation. But I mean, you can tell this is, she doesn't completely ignore Nick. I mean, some of it does get through, and she does sort of take it to heart and wants to follow this through, given her conversations later in the night.
Yes, she is going to go and talk to Tommy, and has a, Tommy's like, oh, you're such a great person, Nicole. You're the best person. You're amazing. She's like, am I? Like, yes, you are. She's like, oh, that's so nice to hear. It's like, there was a lot of talk yesterday when I was streaming about like who is the best player, who's the smartest player, who are the pillars of strategy. And I'm trying to think through all of the people in the house, and I've come down to that I think that Kemi was the smartest person in the house, because she was the person to hang out with Nicole the most and to make Nicole her best friend in the house. And so that makes her the smartest, in my opinion.
I like that.
Because who wouldn't want Nicole as their friend? She's so nice and great.
I don't know. I don't know.
Tommy and Jack and all of them can say Nicole's great all they want, but they don't hang out with her.
Yeah, at least Tommy didn't say he respects her journey or whatever it was that Jack was always saying whenever he was like trying to get someone on his side. Just an amazing person. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. And she's fun and funny. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the live feeders, we like her sense of humor, and it doesn't necessarily translate to the others in the house potentially. But I mean, she's loyal, seemingly, and she's fun. So I have no idea.
Yeah. All right. Just a thought I had during this conversation. So Nicole is going to ask Tommy, hey, I did have a question during Holly's HOH week. Like, was she trying to put me on the block? Did you not want me on the block? Tommy says, yes, I can. I said no. I said no. Do not put Nicole on the block. That's all I can tell you. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I just said no to that plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's again like he will tell Nicole. I mean, it is the truth that the fact that Tommy and Christy were the ones. I mean, especially he emphasizes himself, were the ones that were working hard that week.
Yes. So she clearly is still like this is something that got through to her. It's not something that she's just ignoring. She does want to investigate this. She says to Tommy, he's like, I hope that helps. She's like, yeah, that helps. Just makes me more confused, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, understandably so, because now you're having people, saying like, oh no, we were like working hard to protect you. And so like, of course, like you want to believe that. You want to believe that people like you and that people would, help keep you safe. So yeah, it definitely confuses her more.
Yes. All right. So Nick is going to talk with Sis again about his plan to use the veto on Cliff, and he lets Sis in on his plan for the final 6. So he's telling Sis about that. Kat is going to talk again with Holly. A lot of just reinforcing. She says again that Christy needs to go. Holly is still giving like, unsure responses. Nick is going to also talk with Sis, Christy, and Tommy later. Again, Nick still very fired up. Very fired up. It's like, oh, yeah, those dorks on the other side gotta go. It's gonna be Kat's gotta go. Jackson's gotta go. Jess has gotta go. Jess really has to go. You know what? Jess before Jackson. Can you believe Jess? Can you believe her? That she is only going to put up guys and will not vote for a guy to win in the final 2? That's discriminatory. I told them before I came in this house that I would be vocal against discriminatory predatory behavior, and that is discriminatory behavior right there. Could you believe that? Could you believe that if I was in a position of power and I said that I will only put up women and I won't vote for a woman in the final two? Do you know how mad people would be at me if I said that? And I'm not over-exaggerating his enthusiasm here. He is pumped up, and Sis is like, yeah, you know, being a woman, I've been a woman for a long time, and being a woman, I've never been on board with that kind of feminism myself.
Of course she's not. Of course this isn't. Get the cluck out of here. Just like, oh my God. But seriously, I think I've made my view on Nick very clear. And this was really difficult to watch. The amount of time, like, also he says bro a lot. Bro. Like, what has happened? Oh my God.
I wish I could do like a real Nick impression, because it's a very difficult one to pull off. There's a distinct lack of enthusiasm, but also like intensity and like talking really fast and lots of like he's ready. Jess, you gotta get Jess out. Can you believe Jess?
And then in the few moments when he's not talking, he breathes very loudly.
Yes.
It's just somehow this like very animated, unenthusiastic, loud man. Like I really don't get it. It is truly nuances that Tommy wishes he could capture with his acting skills.
Sandy has it completely correct. He talks over himself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Somehow. He manages to talk over himself. I love that.
So that's how Nick is feeling right now. His boot order would be Kat, Jess, Jackson, Holly. So watch out, Jess. Tommy is going to get out of his punishment costume. It's his punishment is over. He's free. He's no longer in the penis helmet.
I wonder if Nick will still be interested. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Well, Nick, less interested. Sis, more interested.
Yeah, this was super weird. Well, we know that Sis's only concerns are like worrying that if Christy goes to the jury house, she's going to sleep with Jack, and that's going to be a big deal. So yeah, she starts talking about like how cute Tommy is and stuff. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is
Hold
going on?
I can try and recreate this really quick. I'll be right back.
Taran has moved away. He's coming back.
All right. So Tommy, he had a hoodie on, and so he was taking off his hoodie, and his hair was just kind of like splaying about. And Sis was like, "Oh, Tommy, you in that hoodie and your dark hair, you're so cute. Oh, I wish I could date you."
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Yes, this was very bizarre. I don't know if it has to do with like Jack leaving, that there's some sort of pent-upness. I don't know if it's the chicken costume, like she's attracted to other people in costumes, but I guess now he's out of it, so I'm not quite sure what's going on here.
Yeah.
Very
just
bizarre.
a funny little moment there. They were studying up there. Sis was having some trouble with that. It's like, how do you guys know all of this stuff?
She struggles. She also doesn't like the fact that Cliff makes her feel stupid because he uses big words. Okay. I mean, for a woman who doesn't know what a noun and an adjective are, like, it's complicated, remembering days and things that happen.
Yeah. Tommy still really feels like he can get Jackson's vote. He's like, Jackson promised me he'd vote our way, so I think we're good.
Okay, Tommy.
I think we're good. He talks about like, yeah, we need to get out Kat. We need to get out Jess. Kat and Jess, we got to get them gone. Sis pipes in. And Cliff! Yeah, and Cliff. Uh-huh.
That's right.
She's still mad at Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Cliff, he is also going to be studying. There's a lot of studying happening because they're all trying to prepare for the Otev competition. Cliff is going to be studying in front of the memory wall, and he starts giving us a little bit of Cliff notes late in the night. He say, I am 56 years old, and I'm making it this far. I hope that I'm proving that as a guy in his 50s. I can hang with these people. I can play the game. I can be a power player. I hope that I feel like I'm proving that. I'm 30 years older than most of these people. 54. Sorry, Cliff. And you know what? It is difficult. I'm sick of the bathroom humor. I'm sick of the zit popping, the hip hop music during lockdowns. It's difficult stuff.
Yeah, you kids with your MTV and Dan Fogelberg. Like, I'm sure that's definitely Cliff's attitude. No, it was cute. It was like kind of heartwarming. Be like, oh, Cliff, I love you. It's okay, buddy. Like, we got you.
Mm-hmm. I appreciated this because I also don't like the bathroom humor or the zit popping. I mean, I'll take some hip hop, but whatever.
Yeah, ridiculous. It was cute. I like Cliff. I hope he stays.
Yeah, and it really does like help, I think, remind you of like, we look at Cliff as a real player in the house. That hasn't happened for like the older player in a long time. Like, he is doing a very good job for his age, I think.
Summer of Cliff 2019.
Right? Like, for a long time, the older person has been just kind of like there, like no chance to win. Maybe they're impacting the game in some way, but we don't look at them as like, you gotta get Cliff out. He's dangerous. Cliff might make a move. Cliff might pull people in and do something. Like, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really fun to see. And I think that, he wanted to give off the perception of like, oh, he is just the older guy in the house. But then he gets thrust into making decisions that are strategic. I mean, he clearly isn't. Like, that's not how he's actually playing the game. And it's really cool to see,
Yeah, and I don't mean that to be like condescending, like, oh, for his age, he's good. Like, no, just like, I was reminded because I forgot that like this archetype is not supposed to be doing this well, but he is, and that was really impressive to me. Go ahead.
Oh, well, it's like not even just that he's made it this far, but just to hear the way that he talks about the game is really cool. And reading the situations and like sort of being aware of the things that need to be done in order to further his game is just really cool to see that insight.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. That's about what I have. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up here?
No, I don't think so. Tommy made banana bread.
Yeah, he likes to make banana bread.
So that was a thing that happened. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else.
All right. Well, today it's going to be an important day, an important veto competition. There's lots of potential outcomes here. I think they maybe just went for veto picks. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be big. Odds are not very high that both Sis and Nick get picked, but they are somewhat high that at least one of them gets picked. So again, we're probably looking at 3-3. Odds are a little bit higher that neither will get picked than both will get picked, but the highest odds are that one of them do. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, we are looking at a potential Otev, so it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. Just ooh, oh my gosh. I still just can't believe the fact that Christy went up on the blog. Like, I'm pretty sure this was Caitlin and her PayPal account that manifested this. So like, I'm here for it. I genuinely still can't believe it. Like I was telling Taran before, I like left work. The feeds have been down all day. 3 minutes within feeds coming back up. Like, me leaving work was like, Christy's on the blog. Like, beautiful. Just beautiful.
You can watch out for me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. Good chance that I'll try and jump on when the veto comes back. Veto feeds come back. We know who won the veto because there'll be a lot to talk through at that point. So check it out there, Taran, or twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. You can also find me on Twitter @ArmstrongTaran. Liana, where can people find you?
You can find me on social media @Liana Boraas. Yeah, that's me.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on what happens today on the Big Brother 21 live feeds. And then tomorrow night, we will be live with, I believe, Rachel Swindler to recap the Sunday night episode of Big Brother 21. And then the night after that, we'll have the roundtable, which should be a lot of fun as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.